In the last lecture, we were studying about what is the need of food security in our country. Under this topic, we studied certain headings like overpopulation, reduction of land under cultivation, reduction in net sown area under cereals, and in these points, we studied the basic factors which are responsible for the scarcity of food in our country. To continue with the same topic, moving on, the next factor which is the reason for requirement of food security in our country is corrupt administrative practices, hoarding and black marketing. In India, like all of us are aware, that the administrative department does put a lot of efforts into reducing the problems of the nation. For example, the government imposes measures like price control, ration shops, surprise checking of these government units, but still we find that in spite of all these programs and plannings that the government make, corruption still prevails and it infests the whole system. Because of the corruption, the malpractices prevailing in the system, we find that most of the help that the government sends out or lends out to the people does not actually reach them. So, this results into the lack of resources available to the people. Hoarding and black marketing are then again very popular malpractices prevailing in our system. Hoarding, if we have to define the term, is accumulation of goods in the shops when it is available in abundance and then selling it out when the material or the product is less in supply in the market and taking benefit of that situation, pricing these goods at a very high level. So when the shopkeepers stop the things from going out into the market and then they on purpose take their materials out and then sell it in the market when the supply of that material is less in the market, when on high prices. Whereas black marketing is an illegal practice, whereas like hoarding, the material is made available in the market but not on the fair prices decided by the government. So, the leakage in the administrative system corrupts the whole procedure and with it affects the population of the country. And then the final factor which pushes the population into food insecurity is the unpredictable one or something which is out of our control, the natural calamity. Because these natural calamities are unpredictable and uncontrollable, so we find that the disaster they cause affects a large number of population and in the conditions like drought, floods, earthquakes, which are uncertain, an adverse effect is faced by the population of the country. For example, if we take the condition of famine, it is the situation where there is a shortage of food in an area for a very long period of time. And in these conditions, we find that the people starve and a massive starvation can be witnessed here. The characteristics of a famine would be deaths due to starvation, spread of epidemics because of the use of contaminated water or decaying food, or the loss of immunity of the body because of lack of nutrition. So, in all these situations, we find that the people suffer from food insecurity. And if we take an example from our country, majorly in the areas of Orissa, where Kalahandi and Kashipur like places are there, and in these areas famine like conditions exist very frequently, which results into malnutrition human resource in that area. So we find that food security is required in a country to ensure food availability to everybody at all times. Now that we have pointed out the factors which lead us to food insecurity, let us locate the sections of the society and of the country which are most prone to food insecurity. The question, who are food insecure? To answer this question, we'll have to analyze the social as well as the economic structure of the country. To start with the social structure, we'll find that the people of lower caste or SCs, STs and OBCs are the people who are majorly affected by food insecurity. Now why is it? Why is it that particularly these sections are only affected? Because from the past only they have been deprived of facilities, they have not been given opportunities for better jobs or education or to raise their standard of living, which has accumulated till now and is resulting into food insecurity in these castes. People are not very educated, so they are forced to work in low paid jobs, which ultimately provides them with very less support for their family. So, the lower caste section is most prone to food insecurity. Another very important factor in the social structure which tells us about the food insecurity in the social structure are seen in mainly rural areas where, according to the social setup, the people who always had land, who've always been rich, the zamindars, they were always very much better off than the landless or the poor sections of the rural community. For example, the people who were employed in their household works, household industries, the landless laborers who work in the land of these big landlords, or the local artisans who have been working in their family work for a very long time and they are completely unaware or they are not open to the development of the mainstream society, and they are continuously working in the same field their forefathers have been working in, and this has resulted into very much of stagnation into their social and economic development. If we move towards the economic structure, no doubt that the people who are unemployed come at the first place when it comes to food insecurity. The next position will be of those who are engaged in very less paid occupations like the casual daily wage laborers, the people who are engaged in industrial works. These people who have moved from their local rural areas and are now living in the outskirts of the cities, and still they are not earning that much of money which could provide sufficient food for survival of all members of their family. Mostly what happens in these families is that they earn very less, the size of the family is usually very large. They are provided with food, but the food is not sufficient enough to make them a part of healthy population of our country, which results into the decrease of the capability of the future generations or the future labor force of our country, which then again in a vicious chain continues and hinders the development of the country. Apart from the people in social and economic structure, there is another set of people who are very much prone to food insecurity. The first amongst them will be the women, because in our country, first of all, the people don't want a girl child in their houses, and even after that, if they have any girl child and women in their houses, what usually happens here is that the women of the house eats at the last after everybody has taken their food, and with the availability of less food in the family, what is left for the females of the family is very less, and they have a tendency to sacrifice and avoid their health condition. They usually put themselves at the last when it comes to prioritize the needs of the houses, and all of these finally affect the condition of the women of the country. To start with, most women in our country will be anemic and malnutrition. These weak physical condition of the women affect the future generations as well, as the unborn baby is put into a risk of malnutrition. And we find that because of these conditions, the women in our country are affected the worst amongst the members of the family of food insecurity. With all these conditions, now if we have to locate or point out the specific areas in our country which are the worst hit by food insecurity, we'll find that there are certain states which are very much in a poor or a very low situation when it comes to food insecurity. The states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, certain parts of MP and UP, Maharashtra, in these areas we find that the population is not getting sufficient food resources for their survival. The reasons behind this food insecurity can be less economic development, low development of the social structure, lack of education in these areas, or the lack of governmental heed in these areas.